Welcome back to War Thunder Weekly News. This week, quite a lot have happened, but what's most prevalent is that an ex-Gaijin employee contacted me to share information on where War Thunder is heading. What was most prevalent was that it's a guarantee that helicopters will be coming before rank 6 jets. That's a guarantee that there will be both helicopters and modern jets. In fact, apparently they even had a prototype of the MiG-21. Honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw both helicopters and early modern jets at this year's Gamescom. As I've discussed in my prior video, there's quite a lot of evidence pointing towards them actually doing that. For tanks, in the past, Gaijin has actually gone out and collected data on a T-80. This insider cannot say what exact model, but I can't point to it as I've lost the quote from now, but the store team dude had point out quite often that the regular T-80 wasn't anything special, as it was merely just a T-64 with a better engine, armor-wise. We'll more likely get a later model, and with the current 10.0 top tier battle rating, I wouldn't be surprised if this later model T-80 was Russia's 10.0 tank. But also on the subject of tanks, and this goes into the far future of War Thunder, that they want current day tanks, as in T-14 type stuff, eventually. Like, War Thunder isn't going to be some tank boat airplane game that lasts for about 10 years. If it can financially hold up, they plan to have this going for 30 plus years. It could be a game that your kids would be playing. Also on the subject of modern jets and modern tanks, there needs to be a way to deal with these modern jets and tanks. SAM's surface-to-air missile systems have actually been discussed. For those interested in new trees, they have plans for lots of Eastern European nations, including Turkey. How exactly these nations would work wasn't specified, just that Eastern European nations will eventually enter the game. On the other side of things, unfortunately, China, not very likely, as the issue with it isn't exactly a language barrier, culture barrier, lack of interest. Is unfortunately a legal matter, as Tencent actually owns the rights to the models used in the tree. But if this game does last 30 plus years, I can say somewhere down the line it will happen. And those fans of the international tech tree, I have bad news for you. Gaijin is not considering that at all. As if you think about it from a financial situation, pandering to each individual Eastern European nation would yield much better results than to just shove them all in a tree along with random other countries like Brazil and Afghanistan. And on top of that, an international tech tree would have far too many vehicles. On a more vehicle-based note, they do have plans for armored cars, and they have already gathered data on lots of Russian ones. Not too surprising, that's a Russian company. Russia did actually have quite a few very interesting armored vehicles. Some other minor vehicles discussed, I don't want to say them all, as it could give away enough information for Gaijin to backtrack to exactly who this character is. Having the KGB ship your door is the last thing you want. But one of the vehicles is the Bren armored carrier, which at many points was armed with things like a boy's anti-tank rifle and even a 2-pounder cannon. So it is much indeed a viable vehicle. And honestly, I'd love to see that thing in action. Apparently the Germans put a Flak 38 on one. That would be quite the captured premium. Overall, it seems that Gaijin's ideal is that if you can think of a vehicle, it will be in game at one point or another, which makes for an exciting future. Some of the other interesting details shared with me were that the 20 tier system was removed for the 5, now 6 tier system, not to compress the tree, but actually because of Gaijin's potential future. As I said, 30 years plus, there is a lot of vehicles that could be put into the game. And if you were to stick with the 20 tier system, you would end up with 80, 90 maybe tiers, which would be far too much for any regular player to compute. So simplifying the tree down to a 5, now 6 tier system would make things a lot easier to understand. There are probably other financial decisions involved in this thinking, but it wasn't because Gaijin just secretly hates you. They probably do, but this wasn't influenced by that. The other more standard news of this week, we had two major stories, one I kind of already covered in a prior video. Operation S.U.F.F.E.R has arrived, and it's very different from it was years prior, to a point where I don't entirely understand what I'm supposed to do to get the IS-7. In fact, it has gathered so much negative attention that they actually reduced the requirements. Now, if only they could reduce the number of hoops you have to jump through to finally get the damn tank. tank. I plan on making a video discussing this event more in depth when the Stage 2 arrives on the 27th. The other major story that I kind of already glazed over was the balance patches. The first one happened to the Challenger, as people have been ranting and raving how it was broken. Gaijin finally looked into the issue after a Russian forum member gave them all the information that they should have had when they first added the tank to the game. In short, the buffs increased the frontal armor, and its L15A3 and an L23A1 ammunition has had a reduce on straight on penetration, but an increase on angled penetration at 60 degrees. Much like how the Japanese and US L7 APDS, which will be beneficial in many ways as a lot of the penetration that happens at top tier is angled. Other things that happened is a notable number of guns had their accuracy finally improved, and quite heavily. Mike Dundee with his data mining has dug up the exact amounts of these changes and the degree of these alterations. For example, the L7 cannons had their max gun disproportion at horizontal angles from 0.06 to 0.021 and vertical from 0.08 to 0.021. As I said, quite heavy changes. It's thought-provoking on why Gaijin hadn't taken note of such a huge error earlier. On top of all that, APDS has had a slight buff, most notably in the amount of fragmentation that happens. It's something, but I would hope for a bit more. And HESH for Japan and the US has had a nerf, and it no longer has any HE effect and will only have an effect if it pens the surface. Last few changes are actually very important, though very small. There has been laws changed in the Netherlands and Belgium that has complicated the legal status of the Gaijin market, and so they have decided to disable the market for people in those countries. And don't think it's the only Gaijin that's affected by this. It also apparently happens on Steam with their CSGO skins or whatever. Now what makes this interesting as it's not likely to end here. Apparently Belgium has been urging other EU nations to also make similar regulations on loot boxes, which I believe are the cause of this. And while most of the money for War Thunder comes from the US, if the entirety of the EU was closed off to this, it would definitely make an impact on the profitability of the Gaijin market. And there even has been quite a lot of urging for the US government to make similar regulation, though that's only to see on what happens in the future and could be years away. Much more minor, but an indicator of the future. Owners of the Project 1124 gunboat can now finally use the thing. You can't take it into random battles, as it seems there's quite a few bugs with the boat. The rockets don't reload despite there being plenty of rockets on board, and its battle rating is far higher than it should be. But you can test it out, and it's kind of fun. The Soviet Navy is rather underwhelming, but their odd riverboats are entertaining and is oddly enough what I look forward to most with them. As a final story, I have a shirt on Teespring for sale, Attack the D Point. Possibly the ultimate strategy in War Thunder, and will definitely bring victory much faster than rushing B. Best of all, it's 100% historically accurate. You'll be able to find it in a link below. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any comments or concerns, comment down below or join my Discord. If you want to see more of these videos, I make them every weekend, so subscribe. I make random videos throughout the week, so hit that bell icon to be notified anytime I upload anything. Thanks for watching and have a great day.